Hi there, welcome to another edition of TokStocks. I'm your host, Keir Reynolds, and today we're lucky enough to have Paul Begin, CFO for Collective Mining, trades on the TSX with the ticker CNL, and it's also listed on the New York Stock Exchange. What's the ticker there?
CNL.
Oh, there you are. How you doing today, Paul?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. We're day two, end of day two. We're all talked out of the SMI, the Swiss Mining Institute conference here in Zurich. And how's it been for you?
It's been good. The full 2 days of meetings, lots of interest. We just raised the capital, so there's a lot of people not too worried about us, looking for money. It's more about just raising awareness of what Collective is up to.
Excellent. And maybe before we get into Collective, a little bit about your background.
Okay, so I'm the founder or one of the founders of Collective Mining. Prior to that, I was the CFO of Continental Gold for over just around a decade, where we discovered 11 million ounces of high-grade gold in Colombia. We financed it, we permitted it, we built it, we commissioned it to about 80%, and then we ultimately sold it to Zijin Mining in March of 2020 for $2 billion in enterprise value.
Fantastic. And now you're back at it again here with Collective.
Yeah, timing is everything in life. We closed that transaction 1 week before North American COVID. Lockdowns happened, so we found ourselves out of work and locked down. So our grandiose ideas of maybe having a European holiday and enjoying ourselves, that went out the window. We got bored pretty quickly and we got back to work.
And so maybe you could give us an overview. What is Collective? What sort of assets, projects?
Sure. So we are a Colombian-focused exploration company. I'd call it, we're advanced exploration at this stage. We got 70,000 meters into an amazing discovery called Apollo at our Guayabalas project. And we've made another significant discovery called Trap. We are located in the Caldas department of Colombia. And for those who don't know that, it's kind of where coffee and mining meet and coalesce. We are literally next door to the famous Marmato mine that's been operating for over 500 continuous years. And it's in an area where there's one of the best beans in the world, coffee beans in the world.
And in terms of the two discoveries that you've made, one cannot help but notice some of these impressive drill intervals that you've been getting. Maybe you could just, for some of those that aren't familiar, explain these are broad intervals of fairly high-grade mineralization.
Yeah, so this was a grassroots discovery. I mean, we had an outcrop that was roughly 10 by 10 meters at surface. We liked it. We put a hole into it, and first hole, we hit something very interesting. And 70,000 meters later, we have, you got to think of Apollo as an upside down cone where it's kind of gets wider at depth. It comes right to surface. In fact, some of the best grades are at surface. The upper portion of Apollo is what we call a brecciated porphyry, overprinted by multiple styles of porphyry-related veins. And that's why you get these amazing grades and amazing intervals, 500 meters, 600 meters. And then we made a new discovery called the ramp zone, which is about 1,100 meters below surface at Apollo, where we see the geochemistry changing slightly. So we're seeing higher temperature metals. We see elements like bismuth and tellurium that we don't see in the upper portion of Apollo. So it's very interesting. We think we hit, 57 meters at just over 8 grams per ton gold equivalent. We hit another one, I think it was 15 meters at 20 grams per ton gold equivalent. These are roughly a half a kilometer apart. We don't have any other drilling there. But why it's relevant and why it's a potential game changer for the company is because it's at the elevation that just happens to be at the same elevation if you did a 4-kilometer proposed access or a ramp that goes into a valley that's be suitable to where you put the mill and the tailings. It's literally at that elevation. So it's potentially a game changer for the company. We've got to obviously put a lot more holes into it, but that's going to be the focus in early 2025 is attack that zone. And let's see what that looks like because, the ore body's changed and it's looking a lot like the Marmato deeps that RS Mining has that starts, again, coincidentally, right at the same elevation as our drill holes. So that's over 8 million ounces in all categories. I think the grade's between 2 and 3 grams. So our grades, our intercepts to date, albeit only 2, are much higher than that, but it's very interesting from a geochemistry point of view. And did we find something big? Is there another big, system below that 1100 meter. Time will tell, but it's going to be exciting.
And then in terms of, you mentioned that there's also another sort of target or discovery, the Trap, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, that's located about 3.5 kilometers away from Apollo. It is a much earlier stage. It's got 20 holes into it as opposed to 70,000 meters, but it has multi-million ounce potential. So Trap is much different than Apollo. What Trap is it's a vein system, okay, sheeted vein system that's hosted in a porphyry rock. Think of Trap as kind of two parallel zones. There's one zone called the main zone, the other one's called Blackjack. They trend from northwest to southeast. What we know about Trap thus far is that we've drilled it about 700 meters of strike, and we've drilled it, this is all sparsely drilling, obviously, about 900 meters at depth. Okay, and what we're seeing is we're kind of seeing grades around, we're getting like 30 meters at 4.5 grams per ton gold equivalent, some stuff like that. So what you got to think about when you think about Trap, think of kind of two narrower kind of parallel zones that maybe are 30 to 80 meters wide, the grade maybe 2 to 5 grams, and hopefully go down as deep as 900 meters or more. So it's early days, but it's multi-million ounce potential, and it's a very nice complementary deposit with Apollo.
So Apollo, we've had over 70,000 meters. When's it going to be time to put a maiden resource on it?
Well, the short answer is we're not in a rush. Okay, so there's been a number of transactions in our industry. There's been Great Bear, there's been Filo, and there's been Osisko Mining. All of them, had a nice flashy sale price. Both Filo and Great Bear didn't have a resource estimate out, and shareholders did very well. But having said all of that, we likely will put one out, broadly speaking, sometime mid-2026. Okay, but it all depends on what the ramp zone shapes up to be. If the ramp zone shapes up to be something significant, as we hope it does, then possibly we're delayed on that because we're going to need a lot more drilling. But if you just think about the upper Apollo deposit, we need about 30,000 more meters in there to get it to a resource. So we could easily do that. I mean, we've drilled 40,000 meters in 2024. The plan is to drill around 60,000 meters in 2025. But it's not going to go to all to infill, right? We're still kind of in growth mode.
Right.
So we'll get there in time.
And maybe a cap table. How many shares are out? Who owns it? How much insider ownership is there?
Okay, so we just completed a financing about 3 weeks ago. We raised $46 million at $5 a share. So after that, on a fully diluted basis, we have 83.2 million shares outstanding. That includes 2.2 million of warrants that is owned by our strategic investor. And as of this week, or as of last week, our strategic investor had to self-declare. So it was on a confidential basis up to last week. But because of the New York Stock Exchange rules, they needed to self-disclose. So it is Agnico Eagle. So they own 7.5% currently of our equity, and they have warrants that would take them to 9.9%. I should add, management and insiders own 37% of the company. So a significant portion. We're aligned with shareholders. We're not in this for a short-term paycheck or short-term bonuses. We're in this for the equity lift. We believe in it. We participated in every financing, and we want to see this through.
What's your approximate market cap today?
About 350 million.
And what would be some key sort of catalysts that we should watch out for?
So it's drilling. It's the ramp zone. How does that shape up to be? Trap. So the plan next year, as I mentioned, 60,000 meters. We're going to have 4 drills on Apollo and 2 drills on Trap, and 1 drill that we call the fun drill, which is looking for new stuff. So drilling new targets. So you're going to see lots of results. We're going to be a newsy company. You'll have every 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to have results out. So I would be looking to see how the ramp zone shapes up. And by the way, Apollo is still open. The upper Apollo is still open to the north. So there's still expansion possible there, and we're going to be drilling that. But we're going to attack that ramp zone because that is potentially a game changer. And we got to hit Trap. Trap needs a lot of drilling. It's only got 20 holes into it. It's not insignificant if we can shape up a few million ounces there with some luck. So that's kind of what you're going to see in the next 12 months.
Maybe a little bit macro talk. What's your thoughts sort of on the precious metal space? maybe what's your thoughts on the resource sort of investment space?
Okay. So on the precious metal space, I think it's setting up to be a really bull type of market. I look at the weaponization of the dollar with the world wars that are going around us. I look at the government balance sheets. Every single government that I could think of is their balance sheet is upside down. So I don't spend too much time worrying about the gold price, at least in the mid to long term. Who knows what happens in the short term? This pullback that just happened, I think, is a healthy pullback. I think it needed to happen anyway. It was kind of getting a little bit ahead of itself. And then at the in the resource industry or environment industry, there is a lack of quality projects out there. I think that the valuations for junior companies still hasn't, the bull market hasn't kind of trickled down yet. I still think if I was in a major or a mid-tier company, I would be in acquisition mode 100% because it's anything that they buy is accretive at this stage, given their valuations and ours. But having said that, I mean, there's just a lack of quality project. There are some. There's been some wonderful discoveries, both precious metals and base metals, but they're remote. It takes a lot to get at them. And our project in particular, Guayabalas, we're infrastructure rich. We got the Pan American Highway going right through it. We got hydropower going right through it. We got the Cauca River going right through the two projects that we own. And we have a town that's about 35,000 people, just about 30 minutes away. So I think it's just we need to be patient. I think you need to you continue to drill it out, demonstrate that you got the tonnage, and of course the grade. And I think eventually the buyers are going to show up on your doorstep.
So you're over here in Zurich. You're at this conference. What are kind of a couple of goals or things you'd like to accomplish by attending this conference?
It's raise awareness. Like I said, we raised money 3 weeks ago. We're well cashed up. We got $46.5 million on a US dollars on a pro forma basis as of September 30th of this year. We got lots of money. We're going to put it all into the ground. So it's just about raising awareness about what we're up to, getting people interested and ultimately buy the stock.
Do you have a large European shareholder base, or is that an area you're looking to grow?
We do have a large European shareholder base. In fact, our largest shareholder is an institutional shareholder, is a European-based fund, and we have a few other ones that are at reasonable levels. So we do have a decent base. So we need to obviously make a presence here once or twice a year and give everybody updates.
So after I've sat down with a number of companies here, and a theme that I've sort of seen is that it's really a case of the have and the have-nots. The ones that seem to have a superior sort of market cap, superior valuation, are those that have corporate investors, major mining companies that have invested into the company. Do you see the same thing? You guys are lucky enough now to have been able to disclose that you've got a major that's a strategic sort of shareholder of you. Do you also, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that those of us who have a strategic, or lucky enough to have a strategic, have been successful at raising capital over the last couple of years. So I've been in the mining industry for roughly 15 years. I could tell you that the last 5 have been a real struggle to raise capital, okay? And even with good projects. Back in the, 10 years ago or 7 years ago, back in the Continental days, I mean, we had some successful raises. They flew off the shelf, and it was easy, quite frankly. And then we get into this market where even despite, a good project, you're scraping by to make it work. So this last raise that we did was the first time that, in a long time, where we actually had 2.5 times oversubscribed. We had $20 million of retail investment. So it's been a struggle. So those of us who have a strategic investor, were fortunate enough to be able to talk them into that in the last couple of years, because quite frankly, there wasn't a lot of options. Retail and the investment funds, they just weren't there. So if you wanted to raise capital at decent valuations, then strategics was really your only viable option, and I think that's what you're seeing here.
Excellent. Well, Paul, I really appreciate your time. I'll let you get back to the rest of the conference. It's been wonderful to learn a bit more about Collective, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.